I never intended to inherit the orchard. As a child, I recalled my father tending rows of apple trees under a broad, cloud-studded sky, teaching me how to prune branches and watch for blight. He was a quiet man, built sturdy as an oak, someone who believed in working the land, rising with the sun, and letting nature set the rhythm of life. But as I grew older, I drifted away from that rural existence, leaving my hometown for the bustle of a distant city. My father rarely complained. He was not one for words. When he passed, I found myself named the sole heir to the orchard. The news came in a phone call from my aunt, rattling me out of my routine. Memories swirled, the sweet scent of apples in autumn, sunlight filtering through leaves, the gentle hum of bees, and beneath it all, a vague sense that something in my father's final years had changed him, had gnawed at him from within. My mother died young. We had no siblings, so it was left to me, a reluctant caretaker, to sort through his estate, figure out whether to keep the orchard or sell. I arrived on a humid summer evening, dust swirling behind my car as I pulled up the gravel driveway. The old farmhouse stood near the orchard's edge, where rows of ancient apple trees stretched across the horizon. A sagging porch, chipping paint, windows gazing emptily outward. Everything looked worn and silent, unsettlingly silent. Usually birds nested in these trees, their chatter incessant. Now the place felt muffled. Stepping onto the porch, I fished out the house key. The door stuck before relenting with a creak. Inside, stale air and darkness greeted me. I flipped on a single overhead light in the living room. The furniture was shrouded in dust covers, corners thick with cobwebs. My father had lived here alone after I left, but in the last year, he had grown more reclusive. According to my aunt, he no longer welcomed visitors and refused to see a doctor, even as his health declined. That night, I slept fitfully on an old couch. Strange dreams peppered my sleep images of moonlit orchards, of heavy padded footsteps rustling through grass, of my father's face contorted in fear. I awoke in a cold sweat more than once. By the time dawn arrived, I felt a curious weight pressing on me, as though the orchard itself was waiting for something. Over breakfast, I decided to explore. I rummaged the farmhouse for letters, documents, anything that could clue me in on my father's last days. Most drawers yielded mundane things: bills, receipts, seed catalogues. Then, in a desk by the hall, I found something unusual: a small locked wooden box, dusty and unassuming. Its lock had rusted. After a few tugs, the old metal snapped, allowing me to lift the lid. Inside lay a battered notebook and a folded slip of paper with my father's name on it. The notebook's leather cover bore faint scratches, as if scored by something sharp. My breath caught. Gently, I opened it. The first page read, "Hunting Journal of Daniel Holt," my father's name. A flutter of nerves flickered through me. I'd known him to keep logs, weather patterns, orchard yields, but never a hunting journal, at least not that he'd shared. He wasn't an avid hunter, though occasionally he handled a rifle to ward off pests. I turned another page. My father's handwriting spanned the lines in tight, deliberate script. The earliest entries seemed normal enough, discussing small game sightings, a few raccoons raiding the trash, a fox in the orchard. But flipping further, I saw the tone shift. July 19th. Something's been after the chickens again. Tracks too large for a fox, spaced oddly. I suspect a coyote, though bigger than usual. I'll keep watch tonight. The next pages recounted nights he spent in the orchard, rifle in hand, scanning moonlit rows of trees. His words took on an anxious edge. August 2nd. I heard low growling near the orchard's center. Leaves rustled, and I glimpsed a shape bounding away larger than a dog. Couldn't get a shot. Its eyes caught the moonlight in an unsettling way. As I read on, a chill rippled through me. My father described ongoing encounters footprints that seemed half lupine, half something else. Then came an entry that froze my blood. September 5th. I saw it clearly tonight. A massive wolf, at least the size of a man's torso, standing in the orchard. But it wasn't just an animal. It stood on hind legs, sniffing the air, then dropped to all fours and vanished. I can't describe the dread I felt when it turned to look at me like it recognized me. My heart thudded. Had my father encountered some monstrous wolf? The next entry, September 6th. I can't stay silent about this, but who would believe me? I found half-eaten remains of a deer near the orchard's center. Tracks circled it, each print bigger than my hand. The orchard is too quiet. Birds and squirrels vanish on certain nights. I sense it's hunting here. The final entries were scrawled in heavier strokes, the pen pressing into the paper as if from trembling hands. October 10th. Tonight, I confronted it. I waited behind the old apple shed, rifle loaded. A full moon overhead. It came, prowling among the trees. The shape. It was a wolf, yes, but unnaturally large. Shoulders hunched, muzzle dripping. My bullet grazed its flank. It roared, a sound that rattled my soul. October 10th. Later, it rushed me. My rifle jammed. I tried to run. It pounced. It bit my arm. Not a normal bite, a searing heat spread through me. It looked into my eyes, and I knew it wanted me to change. I could feel it. The orchard reeled. Then it fled into the night, leaving me shaking on the ground. October 11th, feverish. My wound throbs. I see its image in every shadow. I sense something growing inside me, a hunger, a restlessness. God help me, I feel I'm losing myself. I can't let it happen. I must isolate. No one can know. Below that line, the journal ended abruptly. My father had never made another entry. He must have hidden the journal in the locked box, presumably to keep it secret. My hands felt clammy. He'd been bitten by a massive wolf and believed it wanted him to change. The notion of a werewolf crossed my mind, but I dismissed it. Such creatures lived only in myth. Perhaps my father was delusional or traumatized by a vicious animal attack. But the orchard was definitely too quiet. The hair on my arms prickled. Clutching the journal, I stepped outside, letting the sun's warmth ground me. The orchard spread before me in gentle slopes. Rows of apple trees heavy with unharvested fruit. A soft wind rustled leaves. Ordinarily, this was a scene of pastoral peace. But something gnawed at me. I recalled nights from childhood when my father would come in late from the orchard, face pale, refusing to speak. I decided to investigate. If there were large paw prints or signs of a wolf, I'd find them. I walked the orchard rows for over an hour. Sunlight dappled the grass. The air carried a faint tang of rotting apples. I found no immediate sign of fresh footprints or scat, though a few of the trees had scratches on their trunks that could be from deer or other wildlife. But the orchard gave me an oppressive feeling, as though it were holding its breath. Nearing the far corner, I spotted an area where the grass was flattened, as if something large had bedded down. My pulse quickened. I poked the ground with a stick, searching. Then I saw them, paw prints pressed deep into the moist soil, leading away. They were big, each print at least as wide as my palm. A sense of dread coiled in my stomach. My father's words rang in my mind. It wasn't an animal. It looked into my eyes, and I knew it wanted me to change. Following the tracks, I noticed they led back toward the farmhouse, weaving among trees. The orchard was oddly still, no birds calling. Something primal in me wanted to turn and flee, but I kept going. Finally, I broke from the orchard into the yard behind the house. The tracks continued across the lawn, heading straight for my back porch steps. I stared in disbelief. There they ended, as though the creature had vanished or slipped away. My gaze traveled to the porch door, half expecting it to be splintered, but it looked normal. A shiver crawled down my spine. If a massive wolf-like beast had padded right to my back porch, why no sign of damage? Could it have approached at night? My father's orchard note suggested it came under moonlight, but these prints were fresh enough to be from the last day or two. I inhaled, glancing around. The orchard was silent, watching. Or so it felt. I retreated into the house, locking the door behind me. My father's journal lay on the kitchen table. I reread the final entry. The creature bit him, left him with a burning infection, a sense that he'd be forced to change. Could it be that my father's reclusiveness the last year was tied to an affliction he believed was turning him into some monstrous wolf? Did he succeed in suppressing it, or, trembling, I realized I had no clue how he died? My aunt said a neighbor found him collapsed in the orchard, cause of death uncertain. Could it be tied to this bite? I pictured him alone, fighting a metamorphosis. My throat tightened. I decided to stay one more night before calling it quits. If a dangerous animal stalked the property, I'd contact local wildlife authorities. But part of me wanted clarity. I needed to see for myself if something haunted the orchard. As sunset came, painting the sky orange, I prepared. I found an old hunting rifle in the barn, presumably my father's. I checked it as best I could, still functional, though dusty. Next I tested the porch light. At least I'd have some illumination if needed. Darkness descended, the moon half full behind drifting clouds. I waited in the living room, lights off, rifle nearby, heart pounding. Hours crawled. The orchard outside was pitch black except for faint moonlit silhouettes of trees. Once or twice I glimpsed movement among the branches, but it might have been the wind. My nerves jangled at every creak of the old house. Around midnight an unnerving hush settled. Even the wind seemed to die. Then came a muffled noise like a heavy footstep on the grass. My pulse leapt. I peered through a crack in the curtains, scanning the yard. At first I saw nothing. Then a shape moved at the orchard's edge, tall enough that I could track its silhouette. My breath caught. The shape hunched forward, dropping onto all fours. Was that an animal or a man? Lightning quick, it darted behind a row of trees. I swallowed hard, my father's words echoing. It looked into my eyes, and I knew it wanted me to change. The idea of some half-human wolf prowling out there tested my sanity. Yet here I was, rifle in hand, sweat trickling down my neck. Minutes of tense silence passed. Then a soft scratching sound at the back of the house. My knees nearly buckled with fear. Something was at the porch again. My mind screamed to hide, call for help. But I forced myself to move carefully, stepping through the hallway. The porch light glowed faintly through the window. I flicked the safety off on the rifle. A shadow shifted behind the glass door. I glimpsed a muzzle, teeth bared, reflecting in the light. My heart pounded so loud I thought it would burst. The creature was outside, sniffing at the door. Through the glass I saw large furred limbs, broad shoulders. It definitely stood on two legs, though it slouched. A werewolf. That ridiculous word hammered in my head. Werewolf. It paused, turning its head, almost as if it sensed me on the other side. I made eye contact, glowing eyes, deep set. In them was a chilling intelligence, a cunning beyond normal animals. My father once wrote that the beast recognized him. I felt the same dreadful recognition. I raised the rifle, heart in my throat. The muzzle aligned with the door, but I hesitated. What if the shot ricocheted? The creature let out a low growl, a vibration I felt in my bones. Then, with startling speed, it slammed a clawed hand against the glass. The impact cracked it. I gasped, stumbling backward. My instincts roared, "Shoot! Shoot!" But a surge of panic made me freeze. The door might not hold if it struck again. Summoning courage, I leveled the rifle and fired. The glass shattered, blowing outward. A feral snarl tore the air, followed by a heavy thud. Something crashed onto the porch. I ejected the spent cartridge, trembling. Did I hit it? All fell silent. Shards of glass littered the floor, my breath ragged. I mustered the nerve to approach. On the porch lay a smear of dark fluid, but no sign of the beast. Stumbling out, rifle clutched, I peered into the gloom. The orchard beyond was a void. My shot had driven it off or wounded it. My father's orchard loomed, a labyrinth of shadows. I dared not follow. I locked myself inside the house for the rest of the night, pacing in adrenaline-soaked dread. The final hours until dawn felt like an eternity. My father's journal repeated in my head, especially the line about the bite forcing a change. Could my father have been infected? If so, did that creature out there carry his remnants, or was it something else entirely? By morning light, the porch revealed claw marks on the wooden boards, and a small trail of dark blood droplets leading into the orchard. My bullet grazed it, apparently. I also found fresh footprints in the orchard's grass, impossibly large paw prints transitioning into something more like footprints, then back again. My father's orchard. My father's transformation. Did he become that beast? The thought churned my stomach. But if he had, how had he died as a normal man? I recalled Aunt's statement that a neighbor found him collapsed. Perhaps he never fully turned, or perhaps the partial transformations eventually killed him. Another horrifying possibility. The original monster who bit my father was still out there seeking new victims. Maybe it had returned to reclaim its territory or find a new host. Sickened by these thoughts, I decided to rummage more thoroughly. There had to be some clue about how my father tried to handle the curse. I found old letters in the attic, references to local legends of wolf spirits in the region. One letter from an old friend talked about silver bullets and warding symbols. My father seemed to have studied these old rumors, hoping to break the affliction. Most chilling was a note scribbled in the margin of a letter. One is the beast, the other must be its replacement. The orchard holds the key. I won't let it pass to me. I refuse. He refused to let it pass to him. But he was bitten. So maybe he tried to resist turning fully. Could that monstrous figure be searching for a new host, someone to bear the curse? By afternoon, I resolved to do a final, thorough sweep of the orchard. If my father had hidden something there, silver bullets, protective charms, I needed it. The house felt too dangerous at night without a better defense. Grabbing the rifle and a flashlight, I ventured among the trees under the glaring midday sun. Row after row, I found only branches heavy with unpicked apples. The orchard had grown wild in many spots. Deeper in, near the old barn, a sense of gloom settled. I recalled that area from childhood, a half-collapsed barn my father once used for storage. Approaching, I spotted a padlocked door. The lock was newish, not rusted. Strange. Why would my father lock part of a barn? I hammered the lock with a nearby rock until it snapped. Inside, dust motes danced. Rusty tools lay scattered. Then, in a corner, a trunk labeled with my father's initials. I pried it open. My heart raced as I saw silver bullets inside, carefully wrapped in cloth, along with a battered revolver. A short note read, "If I fail, these remain." Next to them lay a small metal box containing old charms, scribbled incantations, and a journal page referencing how silver inflicted lasting wounds on the beast. My father must have crafted or acquired these bullets, but never used them, maybe out of fear that killing the beast would kill him if they were linked. Gripping the revolver, I tested its cylinder, loaded with silver bullets. A wave of relief washed through me. At least now I had a recognized Means folklore insisted silver was lethal to werewolves. My father's final note scrawled on the trunk's lid read, "Don't let it turn you, or the orchard is doomed." Goosebumps riddled my arms. That evening, armed with the silver revolver, I prepared for a showdown. I placed a handful of the extra silver bullets in my pocket. I left the orchard barn door open, perhaps to lure the beast in, or at least provide me a vantage. The day's heat lingered, but a cool wind arrived after sunset, rustling leaves with a mournful sigh. Night fell. I sat on the porch, scanning the orchard, the rifle set aside in favor of the silver-loaded revolver. The half-moon drifted overhead, not quite full, but bright enough to cast long shadows among the trees. Hours passed with no sign. I wondered if the creature had fled for good after last night's wound. My father's orchard was eerily silent. No crickets, no owls hooting, just the hush of leaves. Around 1 a.m., a distant howl broke the silence. A low, resonant cry that made my hair stand on end. It echoed across the orchard, answered by a hush. My pulse spiked. The beast was out there. The orchard felt alive with menace. I waited, revolver tight in my grip, senses straining. Soon, I discerned a shape slipping among the trees. My eyes locked on it. Even from the porch, I could see its towering posture, the glint of fur in the moonlight. It advanced slowly. My stomach clenched. This was it, the final confrontation. My father's words rang. It wanted me to change. Claws scraped on bark. The creature paused by an old apple tree, sniffing the air. Then, in a blur, it charged straight for me. I fired once, the shot going wide. Adrenaline hammered through me. The beast ducked behind another tree, then emerged closer. I glimpsed a savage grin, white fangs bared. Taking careful aim, I fired again. A pained roar tore the night as the bullet struck. The creature stumbled, clutching its side, black fluid oozing. Silver bullet success, but it wasn't done. With shocking speed, it lunged forward, crossing the yard. I barely had time to retreat inside before it crashed into the porch steps, claws scraping the boards. I scrambled backward, the door wide open behind me, no time to close it. I squeezed the trigger again. Click empty? My heart seized. I fumbled for more bullets in my pocket. The beast seized that moment, bounding inside, batting the revolver from my hands. It skittered across the floor. In the dim light of a single lamp, I stared up at the monster looming over me, muscles bunched, muzzle dripping dark saliva, eyes shining with a primal hunger. Then came the strangest moment. It hesitated, peering down at me as though deciding. I recognized a flicker of intelligence behind those bestial eyes. Could it be my father? The notion flared, but I saw no trace of his face, only savage intent. Slowly it reached out, pressing claws on my chest, pinning me. My breath caught in fear and pain. The bite to come might seal my fate, passing the curse on. I struggled, adrenaline surging. My fingers brushed the floor, searching for the revolver. I found it inches away, half hidden by debris. The beast lowered its jaws toward my throat, hot breath reeking of blood. Summoning every ounce of will, I grabbed the revolver, jammed the final silver bullet in, and fired point blank under its chin. A thunderous crack. The recoil jarred my arm. The monster's head snapped back, a spray of black ichor coating the walls. It let out a guttural shriek that rattled the entire room. Then, as though its strength drained instantly, it collapsed onto me, massive weight forcing the air from my lungs. I shoved it aside, gasping, watching as the creature spasmed. Shudders racked its frame, fur receding in patches. Bones crackled, limbs contorting. My eyes widened in horror and fascination. Beneath the thick pelt, pale human skin emerged. The muzzle shortened, revealing a human face twisted in agony. For a moment I thought I recognized some features, my father's. No, not quite. The hair color was different, the bone structure alien. Possibly the original werewolf who'd bitten him, or another unfortunate soul in the chain of curses. The creature let out one final rasping breath and went still, its form stabilizing into a man naked, battered, lifeless. My mind reeled. I staggered upright, hand trembling around the revolver. Outside, the orchard stood silent as a grave. When dawn broke, it found me slumped on the living room floor, the body of a stranger lying nearby. My clothes were soaked in sweat and blood. My entire body ached, bruises blossoming. With shaking resolve, I covered the corpse with a sheet. Then, unsure of what to do, I phoned the local authorities. My story, halting and partial, was that a wild intruder attacked me. The rest I left unsaid. They came, took statements, saw the shattered door, the claw marks. They were mystified by the man's condition, a bizarre kind of self-mutilation, they said. Or perhaps a savage altercation. They questioned me relentlessly, suspecting murder or intruder homicide. But the evidence somewhat aligned with my story. They had no reason to charge me. The final cause of death remained inconclusive. I never told them the monstrous truth or about the orchard's hush. My father's journal I hid away, as it would raise impossible questions. In the aftermath, I had the orchard's future to decide. Some nights, I recall the final moments of that monstrous figure, glimpsing the flicker of humanity as it died. Was that the original wolf that bit my father? If so, had I avenged him? The orchard remains unnaturally quiet. Birds are returning, but every so often I catch them falling silent en masse, as though remembering. My father's house is mine now, but I don't know if I can ever live here peacefully. Perhaps I'll sell it, let someone else have the land. Yet a part of me wonders if this place should remain sealed off, a final resting ground for the curse that once roamed under moonlight. A week after the incident, I found fresh paw prints near the orchard's entrance, smaller, fading into the woods. My heart seized, but they never reappeared. Maybe some remnant of the curse lingered, or maybe it was an ordinary canine. Regardless, the orchard's fate hangs in the balance. I recall my father's journal. It wanted me to change. But he resisted, and though he died, he never fully succumbed. In the end, I faced the beast with silver bullets. If that was truly the final monster, perhaps the orchard can heal. At times, late at night, I revisit the orchard under a waning moon. I stand among the trees, hearing only the soft rustle of leaves. No growls, no monstrous presence. Yet the memory of a broad, bestial silhouette lurking in the shadows will haunt me forever. In the orchard's hush, I remember my father's final anguished words on that page, his terror at the bite, the knowledge that some evil willed him to transform. I feel his spirit there, urging me to lay the orchard to rest, to end the chain of fear. I don't know if I've truly broken the curse. Some nights, I wake with nightmares of savage teeth and glowing eyes. But for now, the orchard stands in tenuous peace, its rows of apple trees swaying gently in the wind. The man who turned into a wolf is gone, a grim testament to an ancient legend. And as I lock the farmhouse door each evening, I press a hand to the rifle that remains loaded with silver just in case. Because deep down I sense that the orchard and what dwelled here may never truly let me go.